Welcome, welcome, welcome to yet another edition of Red Carpet to Trailer Trash. My name is Ian Collins, and joining me as always is the Poe Dameron to my Finn, Mr. Connor Rock.
Boo! Oh, I was gonna say something snarky and you totally derailed me. Fuck that.
What was the
Boo.
snarky thing you were going to say?
I don't even remember. I think it's that you're getting faster when you do the welcomes. I don't know if that's intentional.
I want to keep the listener guessing.
Oh man, when's the third welcome gonna come? How fast it's
Yeah.
gonna be.
I'm just so excited to get into today's episode, Connor. We've got
Alright,
we've
well then
got
let's cut this bullshit. Tell us about this
We've got a
episode.
we've got a great episode today where we're gonna have a big focus on the wars of the star amongst the stars. We're going to be looking ahead to the rise of it's the Rise of Skywalker, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Episode 9
Yes.
in the main Star Wars storyline.
It's the Skywalker saga, I think is what it's being called. A trilogy of trilogies.
Yes, and we'll probably also be rehashing some discussions about previous iterations in the series, and just Star Wars as a whole. But before we get into that, I'm gonna do the obligatory review of a movie from a previous episode that we looked ahead to, and I'll give a quick review of Richard Jewell that I'll dive into pretty quickly, unless Connor wants to add anything to the setup for today.
Nope, you got 4 minutes to get through Richard Jewell. I am clocking you. Let's hear it.
Okay, Richard Jewell is the story of the hero security guard at Centennial Park at the 1996 Atlanta bombing at the Olympics. He is basically, if you haven't heard the story, he is a very weird guy, very pro-military, pro-police, has your stereotypical wants to be a big, a big important police officer so he can help people. And his name is dragged through the mud by the national media, the local media, and the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, because he fits the lone bomber, fake hero profile, in spite of the fact that a very simple piece of evidence about his location at the time of the 911 call does not indicates his innocence. He is kept and investigated for 90 days.
Holy shit.
At which time he is discussed in the media as being a fake hero. Headlines such as Saint or Savage are brought up about him. He is accused of being a psychopath just 3 days after having been put on Good Morning America, where they obviously didn't use his real voice, but they actually used actual footage from his Good Morning America interview, and they just they taped over Richard Jewell's voice segments with the actor herein.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and all I could think the entire time was I do not understand why Richard Jewell is so trusting of these FBI agents when they are very clearly trying to fuck him over, and it was just steady the entire movie until the very end. He was just completely helpful and solicitory, trying to help them, because he had the firm idea of, well, I have nothing to hide. If I just give them more information, then that means that they'll figure out it wasn't me, and we'll be able to move forward with that. And that's not how that works. For anyone that's wondering, the story, it's actually very much a focus on the acting in this, because it's just a slow progression through the investigation, but from the side of the investigated, the suspect. So
Okay.
you don't see a lot of what's going on behind the scenes. You just see mostly like what the key
What
aspects are.
he's experiencing,
Yeah,
or like what he would have experienced
yeah.
during. Yeah.
And the you also get to see the reporter that broke the story that the FBI was looking into Richard Jewell and started the media circus. And her name is Kathy Scruggs, I believe. I'm not sure if that's her real name, or if it's like a fictionalized version of the reporter who actually did it. She is Olivia Wilde plays her, and I think that she is probably the best thing about this movie. Does an excellent job, very engaging, steals every scene that she's in, very charismatic. I'm not sure. A lot of people have taken a gripe with how the character is written, because it's implied that she sleeps with a source to get information, which people are sort of impugning about the way it's writing. I'm it is a dramatization of the thing, and I don't think that I think it's sort of like up in the air. No one really knows how she got the information, so a lot of people sort of assumed that she had slept with a source at the FBI, and so they just sort of went with that without having any actual evidence of it. But then again, the entire story is about how she and the FBI ran with the story that Richard Jewell tried to bomb the Olympics without any evidence. So I'm not especially concerned about that.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't seem like a big deal that they fictionalized or maybe didn't fictionalize that aspect.
Yeah,
I think it's fine. People can get over that.
the acting overall is very good. Sam Rockwell was really good. Uh,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
obviously he's Sam Rockwell.
but I think that he had a better performance in Jojo Rabbit earlier in the year. I wouldn't expect this. I suppose it could get a nomination for Best Supporting, but I wouldn't expect it because it seems like that's going to be a crowded field this year. I do see this as being like Kathy Bates did a great job, but I just don't think that she had enough of a focus to get much. Everyone did a very good job, but the only person that really stood out as doing a great job was Olivia Wilde. And a lot of the story in of itself is just compelling, because you know early on that, like, because of the perspective it provides, you know that he didn't do it. And so you're just sort of seeing from his perspective how it can be sort of turned against you, and a willingness to cooperate can really can basically get you screwed over. And it really just sort of spoke to my libertarian soul. Uh, it and that's honestly, like, this is one of those things where people are going to, like, try and take some political messages about it, because apparently we can't just call out abuses of authority, because it might give some people the impression that their political party is doing something right or wrong or something or other. We can't just tell a story about someone getting fucked over by the powerful anymore, and if it might give the wrong message, is how
Right.
some journalists have come out about this film. And I'm more than a little opposed to that thinking. That line of thinking is sort of strange. I think an important thing to take away from this is the idea that the message is very clear that the authorities, if they have you in their sights, will stop at nothing to try and get the world turned against you until you sort of crack. And I think it's an interesting sort of warning story about the powers at being and the damage that they can cause. Strangely enough, I was expecting more of a focus on the how Richard Jewell actually ended up suing CNN and the Atlanta Journal and all of these different news sources for defamation, and winning, actually. But there was literally, I think they mentioned CNN twice in the entire film. And the only reason you saw anything about the Atlanta Journal was because that was where Kathy Scruggs worked, and she was the one that broke the story. But it was really mostly about the FBI investigation, and the media aspect was more of a tangential story about it. Did you have any questions about it?
No, not really. Just how was it?
It was good. Some people have been saying like it's one of the top 10 movies of the year, and I mean it might be. It didn't really stand out as that great to me. I mean it was good, not spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean Clint Eastwood. That's usually what Clint Eastwood's good for, is to have like a very solid, above average, entertaining movie. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's had anything that was like as compelling since I think Gran Turismo back in 2000 or Gran Torino back in 2007.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I think that's probably what people would say is his best.
No, I think his best people would say is $1 Million Baby.
I forgot he did that. I don't know. Yeah, you're probably right. I think I still like Torino better, but
I personally do too, but $1 Million Baby is a great film.
yeah, it is. It is.
Okay. But yeah,
All right.
let's say
cool.
I would still put it as a pretty good movie though. So is there anything
All
else
right.
we want to discuss, or do we want to just dive directly into Star Wars?
Let's get into it because I don't have anything else. We're sure as shit not going to talk about cats again.
Nope.
And
All right.
so let's
Thoughts on
get
this
it.
upcoming Star Wars film?
So I thought maybe since we do talk about like movies that were already out, maybe we'll take a little bit here to kind of just give our thoughts on the whole the genre as it is, and then we'll end with the trailer. I think, not the genre, the saga.
Perfect.
If that,
that works. Do we want to include the Star Wars stories of Rogue One and Solo in this discussion?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like everything Star Wars, excluding like George Lucas's weird Ewok movies.
Or
It may
like
have been a TV miniseries.
or like the have you seen The Mandalorian?
No, not yet.
I haven't
Wait until
either.
there's more episodes.
I haven't either, so it's not a big deal. We don't have to focus on that. Are we going to discuss?
You're insane, Disney, if you think that I'm gonna watch like 4 30-minute episodes and then wait like some kind of peasant in the early 2000s another however the fuck long until you make a new one. Get out of here. I'm gonna binge that shit.
What about the holiday special?
What holiday
The
special?
TV Christmas special from the 80s.
For Star Wars?
Yeah, did you not know that existed?
I didn't.
It's basically like cursed footage that was universally hated. Like, I think more universally hated than Attack of the Clones or Phantom Menace.
Jesus. All right, yeah, we'll just fuck that thing. Kick it off the list too. I don't even know where to start with that. I am gonna look into it after this.
We will focus on the feature films then. So you
yeah,
can
do
go
you wanna-
right ahead.
Well, I mean, we'll start early. Do you want to give your batshit opinion
Oh,
on the Star Wars franchise?
which batshit opinion? The one where Star Wars is the most overrated film franchise in cinematic history?
No, not that one. Which, I mean, you might be onto something there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought you are a fan of the prequels more than like the middle trilogy.
What? No. Wait, what?
Is that not you? Okay, I thought that was what your crazy opinion was. Someone I know likes the prequels better than like the middle three.
Like episode 1, episode 2, and episode 3?
Yeah.
Episode 2 is the worst. Episode 1
absolutely.
is the second worst. And episode 3 is good. It's fine.
See, I don't know. I might put episode 1 over episode 3. I just hate 3. Padme dies because she's sad. It's bullshit and dumb, and it sucks. And it's.
I thought she died
It just-
during childbirth.
Nah, she was fine. Or it's like she died shortly after childbirth because she was sad. She lost the will to live.
Is that how
like
that
the exact
happened?
quote
Are
from
you
the
sure that
movie.
that's how that happened? I haven't. I'd have to rewatch it, which I can because
I'm
I
pretty
still
sure
have Pats.
both the babies or like they're out, they're done. She hunted those kids out, and then the like nurse bot is like, she's lost the will to live because like Anakin was mean.
I mean, I suppose that's one way of saying it, but like, it implies that there were complications with the childbirth.
I mean, I guess. 'Cause he
Also,
force
that's
choked
gonna
her,
be the
maybe
thing that puts
physically choked her.
that's gonna be the thing that puts it over on. That's the thing that's gonna have you launch Jar Jar Binks's premiere over this movie that has General Grievous.
Okay. Granted, the Jar Jar Binks is I can't argue that one away. That you got me. I concede Binks. But I think that well, the parts of Star Wars the Phantom Menace that weren't like all politics, and even those parts weren't terrible, but the parts that they had that were good, like it's mostly Liam Neeson and Darth Maul, and that's why I like it so much.
That's the only
'Cause
reason why I put it above Episode 2.
yeah, that's well, just nothing. Episode 2 is kind of a big pile of garbage.
Episode 2 is quite easily the worst, and I will fight anyone who says that anything different.
All right, I would say it's better than The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi is bad, but 1/3 of the movie is very good. And that's the part with Kylo Ren and Rey and Luke, up until the part where they kill off Snoke, just out of nowhere. It's very good, and then even then, there's still potential for it to be good until they end up turning on each other. What could have been easily the most interesting storyline is if they decided to join forces.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think we should get to that in a second. Well, I don't know. Let's just go stream of consciousness here.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that, and that's why I really liked The Force Awakens when it came out, because I was like, okay, they're clearly like they wouldn't just sell us A New Hope again without making some extreme like divergences from the really clear parallel that they set up.
I disagree. I think that that's exactly what they were doing. They were playing super hard on nostalgia, and frankly, if it was not a clear ripoff of A New Hope, I would have it much higher ranked as a standalone film. But because it's so clearly that's why I have a problem with it.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean like this is when it first came out, I was like, okay, so they got to do something different. And like you said, if they would have joined forces there, or I don't know, like have Finn find out he's a Jedi and turn bad, or just literally anything would have been more interesting than what they did, which was essentially nothing.
Can we talk
That
about
movie,
Finn for
you
a
can
second?
just get away. No, I mean you can just throw that movie out and just skip it. I think in the long term.
Well, if I can talk about Finn for a second, everything on the casino planet was such a gigantic waste of everyone's fucking time. It was unbelievable. It did nothing, it accomplished nothing, it was worthless. And then, finally, for the first time, in 2 full cinematic experiences, am I about to give the slightest shit about Finn as a character when he's about to sacrifice himself to save the rest of them by driving his sort of racer bike into the laser machine.
Yeah, like
and
the new
Rose,
this
worthless character, comes from the fucking top rope and slams directly into him. Miraculously, neither of them dies, which, frankly, Finn probably should have still died as a result of that crash. And her plan was, we can't do it that way because reasons, I guess. So she risks nearly killing both of them so that they can almost certainly be killed in the next 30 minutes by the remaining First Order troops, because she didn't want Finn to sacrifice himself in saving everyone else's lives. It makes zero logical sense. But guess what? We get to look forward to Rose being a fucking general in this upcoming film.
Wait, did she not die? I thought she died.
Nope, she's a high military officer.
The only character who was worse than her was pink-haired general lady. She sucked, and she cost us that stupid hour and a half of the movie.
She
She could have just
easily
been
could have
like, "Hey,
just,
here's the plan."
yeah, she could have just shared the fucking plan.
Yeah, and also, I feel like this comes back to kind of the Rose saving Finn to let him die like later writing. Like I feel like the writers just had no idea what they wanted to do with this movie,
Mm,
and that's why it's like all over the
They
place.
clearly
Like
did
shit like
not.
that happens. They just introduce things to take them away and be like, that was a big deal, and any audience member would just like, no, I barely knew who that was. I didn't give a shit. Like if I don't give that much of a shit about Finn after he did all that crap in the first movie, I'm sure as shit not going to care about this lady who's just been horrible, like just extremely unlikable because she has like some quote unquote saving grace moment where she saves everybody, when in reality she could have just told everybody the plan all along and then just committed a war crime.
Yeah. Oh wait, when did she commit the war crime?
You're not allowed to just drive cruisers into each other.
That's not a war crime, but that is a crime against humanity with how stupid on in terms of movie logic it is. Because it basically says that at no point ever did anyone ever put forth the fucking forethought that maybe we can just destroy this Death Star by going hyperspeed through it. Maybe that would work.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of letting literal planets be destroyed, we can send a fucking droid to sacrifice himself by going ham and just hyperdriving through this Death Star. But no, that was never even considered because fucking reasons.
Well, I'm fairly certain because I live with a big Star Wars nerd, and so is our buddy Pat. You know Pat.
I do. I
Um,
still have his
I'm
DVDs.
fairly. Oh yeah, you mentioned that earlier. But I'm fairly certain, and Kate will probably poke her head out here and correct me. But like using hyperdrive for like combat in at least the EU as it used to be before Disney rewrote it, was like an actual war crime. That's why no one did it. That's why it wasn't like, I don't know why a bunch of rebels wouldn't just do it to blow up a Death Star. Still, that's a good point, but I
Yeah,
think that's like
it's
a
a
big
war crime
no-no.
to use to use warp drive as to launch it as a missile. But God forbid you do it to stop a literal planet destroying
Planet
laser
Destroyer, yeah.
weapon.
Yeah, that movie was also the only movie I can remember in my adult life that I saw in a theater and was also bored. Like nothing happens. It was so boring. And granted, okay, I take that back. The stuff with Luke and Rey, I like that. And like you said, like Kylo's kind of nonsense in like the first little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I could fuck with that. But the rest was just like literally watching like cruisers fly through space, a weird casino heist, and then I don't know. I was really into the last battle until Mark Hamill did like the brush the dirt off your shoulder thing, and I was just like, oh, that is so awkward. I don't like this. Like,
Yeah.
it was just, they just took a poop and they threw it up on a screen, and that's what that movie was.
Well,
Also, killing off Snoke, like, why they tried to make that into a big deal. And
well
here's
that
another problem I have with just how it happened. I'm sorry, I'll let you speak in 1 second. But when like Kylo's like he's gonna kill Snoke because he's like levitating the or like the lightsaber, and Snoke's just like, yes, turn the blade towards your true enemy. You're telling me that motherfucker is like a master of the Force, like dark ass Sith Lord, and he can't determine which way that blade's pointed? Fuck that. I quit after that moment.
Yeah, also, I agree with you on that point, that he clearly should have been aware of what the fuck was going on, and also just the clear, just blatant in your face foreshadowing of what was about to happen was painful.
Yeah.
But I would have excused that had they just gone with the Kylo Ren and Rey are now like on the same team. But instead, what they decided
Yeah.
to do was just be like, hey, you know that enemy that we introduced as actually being the big bad guy? Yeah, he was on screen for like a cumulative 5 minutes.
If that.
And was then murdered. And yet you should still feel like something cool was done because reasons.
Yeah, and because they just wipe it all away. Because then, like, I am interested in this next movie to see what they do with Kylo Ren, like his like new mantra of like, who cares? It doesn't matter. Like, let's rule and figure this out. Like, it doesn't have to be
Emo
the Empire.
Kylo
It doesn't have to
Ren.
be whatever. Yeah. But him just being like, none of this is all bullshit. Like, me and you, we should team up. And if Ray would have been like, yeah, sure, let's figure this out. And the next goddamn movie could have been like them sitting at a coffee table being like, well, how do we run an empire? And I would have been more on board than the bullshit where they're just like, she's just like, no. And then they erase everything that just happened in that movie and they're enemies again. Like, it's, I don't know. I don't like anything that was done in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, and if you actually look at interviews with a lot of the actors that have come out recently about how J.J. Abrams is back in charge, they didn't really like it either. My favorite theory is that Rian Johnson actually did that as an indie film darling to kill the last remaining blockbuster property out there to to prove what real art is, like as a fucking a sleeper cell, which frankly would make more sense.
I would buy that. Oh my god. Yeah, it would make more sense than anyone looking at that script, watching that movie, like watching the cuts of that movie and being like, "This is big, guys." It's I think I'm gonna subscribe. I subscribe to that theory, Ian.
There are people. The strangest thing to me is that there are people who come out and actually love The Last Jedi, and I just don't get it. Like, you have to be the most hardcore Star Wars fanboy to just look at that and be like, yeah, no, that's a good movie.
There are people who I was gonna say this earlier, be like, because it treats the audience like they're stupid so many times throughout the movie, like with the killing Snoke, with the general introduction and then death, and like they're like, that matters. They just kill off Admiral Akbar. Fuck that. I forgot about that.
Oh wait,
And
we forgot to mention fucking Leia. They had a perfect way to get rid of Leia with Carrie Fisher having died off. Do you have any? That would have been perfect. We would have been fine with it. Now, not only do we have Leia, who has been out in the recesses of space for a legitimate minute or two, is just
she Mary Poppins their way back in
is
there.
unconscious but is still able to fucking force pull herself all the way back to the ship. Are you fucking kidding me with this bullshit?
When Carrie Fisher died, Disney had to be like, hell yeah, now she can be in all the movies, and we don't have to pay her anything. Because they own the Leia property, and that's different than your real property, or your real person. So it's just fucking stupid. That's why Mark Hamill, I guess, he's in this next one. I don't know if it's just his voice. Maybe he's a Force ghost, who knows. But, yeah, the Leia thing was dumb. And what I was going to say is, because there's so many instances where it treats the audience like they're stupid, but then watching how avidly some Star Wars fans defend this movie, I think they may have been right. Because it is insane to me that people are still like, Rian Johnson knew what he was doing, he made big risks, he got high reward. I was like, no, nothing happens.
I'm more than willing to admit, Rian Johnson did take big risks.
Okay.
They just didn't pay off. None of them paid off.
The risk was making a shit movie. I don't know what risks. There was nothing, because nothing substantial happened. You can't have a risk that didn't amount to anything.
You know what was a risk? Making Rose a central character. You know?
Okay. Just all of his ideas for the movie were risks. I think that might be my whole spiel on that movie.
We vented thoroughly on The Last Jedi and all of its flaws. So what?
I don't know. It's gotta be.
What would we like to say about the other movies leading up to this?
So, I mean, we touched on this. I liked The Force Awakens. I was okay. I'm less okay with the parallels now that it was just a rebranded New Hope. than I was before I saw The Last Jedi, because like I said, I really hope that they were setting those up to do something meaningfully different. And maybe we'll get that in the
Jokes.
third one. Yeah, but it sure as shit did not happen yet. That being said, I liked it a lot. I mean, it had pretty much everything I wanted from a Star Wars movie as far as like effects. Like that lightsaber battle where they're in the forest and they're literally like cutting down trees. That was like my inner child needed that. It was a solid. It was just cool to see. And then they combined it really well with practical effects too. So I don't know. I did really like that one at the time. I still think it's a solid movie. Just a little disappointed in how it's just A New Hope again. And I really wish they would have done more with like Kylo Ren killing Han Solo, because I originally really wanted to see like, and I think we'll probably get that in this movie, like his redemption or like or Kylo Ren's redemption. And I thought that something would come out of killing Han. Like there was a lot of like nuances to that scene that people picked apart, and then in the end it just, well, I mean they just have nothing's come of it yet, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Force Awakens, like, my biggest concern with Force Awakens is all it was a nostalgia play. And if, like I said before, if it were its own standalone movie, it'd be fine, it'd be good. It would be a straight up good movie. But that's not what it is. And so
Yeah.
it's just pulling, the entire plot is basically A New Hope. The characters are just slightly different. They introduce Finn as someone, I don't know why we're supposed to care about him. That's basically the only difference, is that Finn is now a main character, and I don't know why I'm supposed to actually care about him as a character.
I don't know. I liked his like origin. I thought like a defective stormtrooper was a cool take on like a character.
It is a cool take on a
And
character, and they have done absolutely fucking nothing with it.
yeah, so that's the biggest problem. And then because they give him that, and then as soon as they get to whatever, I forget whatever desert planet it is this time, he's just like kind of there for the rest of the movie. Tries to fight with a lightsaber and gets like his spine zapped.
Can we also talk about how it doesn't make sense that there's a black stormtrooper when they're all aren't they all supposed to be clones of what's his face, or is that only the Clone
So
Wars?
I think the clones get phased out at some point. Like the actual stormtroopers weren't all clones either.
Okay. See,
The
I
clones
am
get
not
phased out at
I am
some
not a
point.
big enough Star Wars person to know these sorts of details.
Yeah, I'm like 80% sure about that, and like I said, that I don't know if that's it has to be canon in Disney now, but I think at some point, yeah, the clones get replaced because like there's all kinds of well, I think they're mostly humans because like the stormtroopers are like the Nazis of the space and they
Yep.
hate all weird non-human aliens.
Have I
But yeah, they get
have I told you about the like series of articles that suggest that the Jedi are actually a radical terrorist organization, and that the Empire are the good guys?
yeah, I think so, or like or maybe Pat has. We're gonna mention him for a third time in this episode. We should tell him to listen. Um, And I could get on board with that if they weren't literally blowing up planets for no reason.
Hold on. If I may, one, I
All
would
right.
like to redirect you to the article that I think was published in the Washington Post, titled "The Destruction of Alderaan Was Completely Justified."
Do you remember the reasoning?
I believe it was something along the lines of being that the uh, the planet of Alderaan was clearly harboring terrorist forces that could bring down the entire empire, that has brought order to the galaxy, and has also. It is also worth noting that the Jedi treat the droids as slaves, and that therefore they lack the moral high ground. And so, as people who are like are clearly committing atrocities on a moral level, the moral compunction to uh, to sort of protect them while they're harboring known terrorists sort of goes out the window. I don't remember. It's been like a couple years since I read it.
Was this written right around the time Obama was drone striking everybody?
I don't remember. I think it was more in line with like the Bush presidency.
Okay. I don't know.
I would definitely suggest reading it because it's quite amusing. And then, like, there were 2 actual articles written, and then an internet troll by the name of Comfortably Smug wrote out a series of blog posts titled "The Radicalization of Luke Skywalker."
I mean, he is like convinced by an old guy to join a religious organization that is going to blow up a thing. So
exactly, he's told it's a suicide mission, but he's doing it for the just cause. I mean, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
That's true. I mean, in this, the CIS or the CSI, I think it's the CIS, the Confederacy of Independent Systems. In the prequels, they're the good guys if you look at it this way. Well, also, what happens to all the robots? You telling me Emperor Palpatine just takes over as like a Sith Lord, and then he's just like, fuck these robots, these millions of robots I have.
Well,
I'd rather use these stormtroopers.
Well, that's the question. That's sort of the idea amongst them is that no longer are the droids being enslaved and forced to fight for them, and so therefore they're free to do as they will. And so, because they're no longer being enlisted or being required to participate in war, that's why they have to go and find stormtroopers, actual human or, I guess, living beings, as opposed to the sentient droids.
I suppose. It's still, there's just a bunch of battle droids that are unaccounted for. Maybe that's something that exists out there too. I think going back to the destruction of Alderaan and the Empire being justified, we should talk a little bit about the OG saga, because I don't think we've touched on that a whole lot yet, and then let's get into Rise of Skywalker.
Yep.
Predictions.
What would you like to discuss in the original trilogy?
So, to your comment about it being very overrated, like the Star Wars saga in general.
Yes.
I think that's fair. I think it just was. I don't think this is exactly what it was. It was just so different for the time. It was It really captured. I mean, what was it, like 87?
77,
89?
I believe.
77. Jesus, I was a decade off. But yeah, so it was so unique and original, and even watching A New Hope, especially, just the scenes where they're on alien planets, like when they go to Tatooine. And the little scenes, like obviously the canteen is a bigger scene, but the little scenes in between the main action where they're just dealing with environments or alien species just feel so authentic. And even watching them to this day, I love it. I mean, the effects don't hold up great, but luckily a lot of them are practical effects. So I think that's why it captivated the audience, such a large audience in the way it did. Is just because it was so new and creative and authentic, and then the second one really doubled down, added a lot of plot to it, a little bit of plot to it. You can say what you want about Return of the Jedi, that maybe kind of blew, but the first two at least, I think, I agree with you. I think they're overrated. A lot of it's nostalgia these days, especially with this new saga. We didn't really need this, or the new trilogy. But I think there is a reason that it got so big.
Oh, let me point out that, because we never actually got into that take, because you realized that it wasn't as crazy as the one you thought I had.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is not because the first 2 movies aren't good. The first 2 movies are legitimately great movies. I prefer the original Star Wars over Empire Strikes Back, but I'm more than willing to accept what someone says Empire Strikes Back is better. But the problem is, those are the only 2 legitimately great movies in the series. Now, there are a few that are good. Like, I personally really liked Rogue One and Solo.
Oh yeah, we need to talk about those. I think those two are probably third and fourth on the list of
That's what
best
I
Star
have
Wars
them as.
movies.
I have Rogue One as third and Solo as fourth. Then I have Return of the Jedi. Then I have Revenge of the Sith. Then I have Force Awakens. Then I have Last Jedi. Then I have Phantom Menace, and then I have Attack of the Clones.
Okay, I mean that's a fair list. I disagree a little bit, but we don't need to argue about that placement again.
Yeah. So, but I mean, let me just go through this. Like, we already talked about the problems with Last Jedi, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. You've already pointed out how much you hate Revenge of the Sith. Force Awakens is just a rehash of the original, a better movie. Return of the Jedi is the only one that I can hear someone coming in and trying to make a case in favor of that. But even then, it's very clearly the worst of the original trilogy. And
Oh
then
yeah, by far.
and then Solo, a Star Wars story, that one is very much like also very heavy nostalgia. I really enjoyed it, but it was still super heavy on nostalgia. So I'm not like it was not great, it was just good. And then Rogue One, I guess, is sort of borderline. I still would just put it as good. But only having two great movies and then maybe four like and then like four or five that are meh, sort of average, maybe a little above average, and then having another three that are just bad is not a good track record for a saga like this.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and I think as demonstrated by the fact that people defend the Last Jedi, or at least some people defend the Last Jedi, I think that kind of speaks to why the other movies were so popular. Even though they're not good movies, like the Star Wars, it's kind of like I don't want to compare it with something too similar, but like Star Trek has such a giant fan base because it's just expansive and you can get a lot of it. And I think Star Wars is the same way because you have the movies, the games, the books. People like it and they like it because you never run out really. I would be hard pressed to find someone who's done all the Star Wars stuff, and if so, I never want to meet that person. That's a terrifying person.
I cannot wait for this the Skywalker saga to end because I think that there is so much potential in everything else that they have. Like you could do a series on the Knights of the Old Republic. That could be interesting. What they're doing with the Mandalorian, that can be super interesting. There are just so many
Yeah,
different things that they can do that instead of just dragging out the corpses, in some cases literally, of of old actors to try and pump as much of that nostalgia cash out of the older fan base.
yeah, and I really liked what they did with like a Star Wars story, like Rogue One and
Yeah.
Solo. And I was disappointed when they canceled Solo because they canceled like the standalones after Solo because it didn't do very well in the box offices because people were still pissed about the Last Jedi. Like that's why I didn't see it. And then it turned out to be it's probably one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I think it's probably third on my list. Um, but I absolutely agree with you. There's so much more, and they actually have another trilogy planned. But I think it is going to go into Old Republic stuff, or at least it takes place far away from the Skywalkers, because God knows we've had enough of them. That being said, so we got to talk about the Rise of Skywalker, right?
Yes.
Last couple minutes. We'll go on for however long we go on.
This is the
This is
Star
the
Wars
Star Wars
episode.
episode. So the Rise of Skywalker, just the title is very interesting to me because the only sort of Skywalker left is Kylo Ren. And I watched both trailers for the movie, and I gotta say, it kind of the trailers got my hopes up more than I might actually go see this. Kate wants to see it, so I'll probably end up going with her. But the trailers got my hopes up in a way that I was not expecting after the Last Jedi has just scarred me. Like it's in my brain. It's bad memories. So I am interested to see what they do with this. I think finally we might get the Kylo Ren Rey team up, especially because in one scene, it's kind of I watched this small clip from the trailer like probably 30 times. It's like half a second long, but it's cut edited to make it look like they were fighting, and their like lightsabers smash through the pedestal that he has with Darth Vader's helmet. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But if you look like in like the very fraction of a second after that, neither of them really look like they're ready to go back into combat with each other. So it kind of looks like it's more of like a symbolic thing where they destroy like, because that's still Kylo's big thing, is like trying to prove to Darth Vader that he's like worthy of his ancestry or whatever the hell it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks like it's more of like a symbolic thing where they're both destroying that and getting rid of that idealism. And I could be wrong, but I mean that's at least what it looked like, and that was the only snippet from the trailer that really caught my attention. I mean everything else looked pretty standard.
Yeah. So the horses didn't stand out to you?
I forgot like that that scene. I guess happens right at the time where like they're going over with like the voiceover. It might be the voiceover. It might be like the story ends or whatever. Like where the text comes up and then that shows up, and that whole part I was just like, ugh.
Okay. So
did you like the horses?
No, I thought it was really
Okay.
dumb and didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's fair. Why are you riding horses in the space battle?
Yeah, no, that is exactly my concern, because why in God's name would you bring a fucking horse to a spaceship fight? That's like cowboys versus aliens in this bitch.
I forgot about that movie.
That's a movie that exists, everybody. That's fun. I'm very torn on this movie because there's so much potential here. There's a lot that can be done with the Rey and Kylo Ren story that would be very compelling.
Yeah.
The Poe Dameron, Finn, Rose story.
I could give less of a shit about any other story arc. I just want to see how these two...
I legitimately would be impressed if they could get me to even slightly care about that, any of them, just as characters. I think, did R2-D2 end up actually doing anything in this last movie? I don't remember.
I don't think so. I think he like woke up, or no, in the last movie, I don't think so. I could be wrong. He woke up in the first one, and then that was it.
Yeah, nothing.
I think, doesn't Luke still have him? Or no, he left. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's fine. They're gonna be battling with the First Order, which I assume is now solely led by Kylo Ren. Rey's just fucking off doing whatever, I guess. I just don't know which direction this is gonna go, but with J.J. Abrams at the helm, and the fact that the Emperor is coming back as a part of this film, and it's called The Rise of Skywalker, I'm so worried that he's just gonna pull some bullshit about that's just just stealing ideas from the original trilogy again, about how he's gonna end it, to play off the nostalgia and finish the story that he wanted to tell in some way. He's obviously sort of been put behind the 8 ball also because he has to undo a lot of the damage that Rian Johnson did. And you can tell that that's what he's doing, because in the very first trailer, he has Kylo Ren putting back together the helmet that he destroyed, like 10 minutes into Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that, I'm not sure if I'm excited about that or if I'm concerned about it. Like I said, I'm very torn on this, because that was an interesting thing to happen as sort of character development, because Kylo Ren had basically sort of moved out of the shadow of being Darth Vader and was now, like, doing his own thing, was sort of the idea that him destroying the helmet was.
Yeah,
and that's why he didn't listen to Snoke in the end, was because he was going to think for himself and do what he thought was best. Whereas now it raises the question, is he basically just going to be a Darth Vader stand-in again?
Yeah, which I really hope that's not the case. And I guess my hopes for this movie, like, essentially, I'm exactly where I was before I saw The Last Jedi, as far as my hopes for this movie, which is kind of a disappointing thing to think about. But you bringing up the putting his helmet back together, maybe he just likes it. Maybe it's a cool helmet, but maybe it is symbolism. And if that's like, if he's just gonna be a Vader stand-in, and then at the very end, Rey's gonna get through to him, and then they're gonna kill Palpatine again, I will.
That
I don't
would
know what I'll
be
do,
that
but
would be the worst way to end that storyline. And like I said, that storyline is the only thing that is I'm holding out hope for. I think that J.J. Abrams has enough skill to be able to put together a decent ending. I won't expect it to be a great movie, but I think it does have the potential to be a good movie. But it's also
yeah,
2.5 hours long, so we'll see how this goes.
yeah. Like I said, the trailers made me a little optimistic, but there are parts of it I really don't like. I don't like bringing Palpatine back. Like I
Nope.
get it. They need something there now because like
The
big
big
bad guy
bad.
Snoke,
Yep.
who was totally bad. We're sure of that. I know he was bad for sure because he was deformed.
Because he was.
He never fucking did
Yeah, he
anything.
was mean to Kylo Ren a few times, and then asked Kylo Ren to kill this woman that just broke into his ship and was trying to kill him, if I remember correctly. Or
Yeah.
what was she doing that she ended up in front of Snoke?
Dude, I have no idea. I think like they were like talking through their thoughts, and he was like, "I have answers" or something about like who you are.
Yeah.
Cause I don't know, it was something dumb. It wasn't a great plot device that got her there, but they needed to have the only solid action scene of the movie with them fighting all the red guys. Which why don't you just make stormtrooper armor or literally all armor out of whatever the hell those weapons are made out of? Just like line it, like coat it, like football pads, or like cross weave it, make chainmail out of that shit.
Yep.
That's just some thoughts I'm having. But yeah, I don't like that they're bringing Palpatine back, but like I get it. I was really pissed during the first teaser when you like hear us laugh at the end, and I was like, I remember thinking like, oh my god, they're really just like giving up and trying to cash in, and that still could be the case. Who knows?
That is my big concern, but I'm still holding out hope.
All right, well that might be all the Star Wars talk I have for right now. I bet I could probably yell about more things about the Last Jedi if I really thought, but we don't need that. Oh wait, okay, hold on. Luke, who was like, he's been through the whole original saga or trilogy at this point, and then at the end of it, the dude who's literally supposed to be Space Hitler, aka Vader, Luke's like, no man, I can save him. I can redeem his soul. And then I guess maybe age is experience, but like Kylo Ren is like angry one time, and he's like, well, I gotta go murder my nephew in his sleep. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, that was a bit off. I didn't quite I think maybe he was trying to prevent something from happening, or he also hadn't actually made the decision, I don't think. But his willingness,
He had
his
he
open,
had his lightsaber drawn.
yeah, no, his willingness to do that so quickly didn't make much sense. And I realized it was basically meant to give sort of a secondary look at Kylo Ren, which once again, every part of the movie was building up to Kylo Ren joining forces with Rey, and I am so pissed that that didn't happen. Everything was
Yeah.
pointing in that direction. It would have been such a like I would have forgiven everything else about the movie. Like I wouldn't have put it like as highly as the original trilogy, but I wouldn't have called it a garbage movie had they done that, because that would have been the most interesting thing they've done since the original trilogy.
No, yeah, I agree. It wouldn't have saved the very like I think that more movie was just boring. There was too much of it. But if they would have done that, I would have been a little more lenient with it instead of
Yes.
all the nonsense that they did. All right, that is actually all I have to say about Star Wars. You got anything else?
About Star Wars, no, but I will provide a recommendation again this week. I'm going to recommend Elf. It's a quality Christmas movie. It's that time
It
of
is a
the
solid
year.
Christmas movie.
It's one of the best.
I'm-
One of my favorites.
It is that time. I forgot we were doing Christmas movie recommendations. I do not have one, so that's if we want to jump back to Spooky Corner, I just recently watched It Comes at Night,
I've heard
or
good
It Comes at
things.
Nighttime. It was okay. It was fine. I mean, very, very like slow burn tension movie. I really wouldn't call it a horror movie. Um, but that's what it's billed as, or like credited as, or whatever you want to call it. But no, I mean it was okay. But you got to be into watching a movie that's like kind of it just like makes you uncomfortable the whole time. Not like necessarily like
Sort of like listening to this podcast.
yeah, exactly. So that's gonna be my Christmas time recommendation coming from that was for actually the Friday the 13th was in December and I did watch it that day or maybe the day after. So it's sort of relevant.
Proud of
And
you?
final recommendation, don't go see Cats because that's terrible. It's
I
horrifying.
might fall on that sword because I care about the people. You, the people.
All right, well, give us the. I guess the easy. It's pretty easy. Your job's easy today. Let's hear the rundown.
Richard Jewell is ready for the red carpet, and I will give a very cautious and tepid ready for the red carpet to Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker.
It's balls in your court, J.J. Abrams. Can you fix the shit, or are you just gonna add more to the pile? That's a saying, right?
Are you gonna? I suppose you could say, are you gonna polish this turd, or are you just gonna add more to the pile?
There it is. Let's coin that. That's a good one. All right. Well, thanks for listening, listener. There might be two. I haven't checked the analytics in a while, and we also didn't put episode 12 up. But hey, one day, maybe I'll put it up this week because it's talk about cats. Everything's in order. That was Ian Collins. I'm Connor Rock. You can follow our podcast on Twitter at RCTT Podcast. Yes, that's right. And then Ian, talk about your things because I can never remember.
Yeah, no, my plugs. I also have an episode of my new podcast, Stereotopical, in the can. That's just a deep dive into different potentially political, but also just more interesting topics. The first episode was on healthcare, and I will be having it posted sometime this week. And I believe that the next episode we are looking at discussing the current state of the state of West Virginia. So that's something to look forward to. And then my other podcast that is actively going and can be found on Spotify is Fade the Public with my friend Ryan Morrison, and we pick football games every week and discuss the week in sports news. We have a dumpster fire of the week and a boomer of the week, and this week we'll actually be doing a special bowling edition where we discuss all of the different bowl games for college football and pick them all against the spread.
Are you gonna do that in a bowling alley?
I'm not gonna do it in a bowling alley.
Well, that's a wasted opportunity, but I guess, what do I know?
We don't have those sorts of production capabilities yet.
That's fair. We couldn't do this in a bowling alley, that's for damn sure. But
we can barely
really
do
have
it in the comforts of our own home.
There's no production value here. And that's the way it's going to stay forever until this gets lost and eaten by the internet abyss. It will get deleted, but its little particles will still be floating out there in the nether, just kind of like all of us one day.
And boy, am I looking forward to that.
All right, well, cool. Until next time.
Until next time?